Do you believe you truly know the story of the 300 Spartans? That renowned tale is merely the tip of the iceberg, a single moment in a war that shaped the course of history. In the narrative that follows, you will journey from the immense, golden palaces of Xerxes to the narrow, blood-soaked passes of Thermopylae, a voyage through the heart of an ancient conflict. You will feel the thunderous crash of triremes colliding in the waters of Salamis, a testament to strategic genius against overwhelming force. You will witness firsthand how a small collection of disparate city-states managed to bring the largest empire on the planet to its knees at the fields of Plataea, forever altering the balance of power. Within this epic saga, you will uncover the hidden ambitions that drove kings and the pivotal betrayals that irrevocably changed the destiny of continents. It is a story of immense sacrifice, one where a tactical defeat was transformed into an immortal legend, a beacon of defiance that would echo through the ages. Each chapter of this history reveals an unexpected turn, a secret mountain path sold by a trader for personal gain, an allegedly invincible fleet trapped by its own arrogance, and a king willing to make the ultimate sacrifice so that the very concept of freedom would resonate for all time. The ancient world had never before witnessed a power as magnificent or as sprawling as the Persian Empire. Its domain stretched from the sun-scorched deserts of Egypt to the formidable mountains of India, a testament to its unparalleled military and political might. Its armies marched across the known world like unstoppable tides, their sheer numbers and disciplined force compelling nations to bend to their will. The influence of the empire was vast, shaping the destiny and culture of countless peoples who fell under its expansive shadow. Darius, the great king who unified these diverse peoples and erected palaces of shimmering gold, left behind a glorious legacy of conquest and administration. Yet, he also bequeathed an open wound, a source of profound shame for the Persian elite. This wound was the humiliating defeat his forces suffered at the Battle of Marathon, a sting that his son Xerxes would feel with visceral intensity. When Xerxes ascended to the throne, he inherited far more than a crown and a scepter. He inherited a solemn promise. His destiny, as he saw it, was to avenge the honor of the Persian Empire and to definitively erase the stain of disgrace left by the defiant Greeks. Under his command, the empire would not merely continue its dominance. It would expand as never before, swallowing all who dared to oppose it. A new chapter, one destined to be written in blood and glory, was about to begin. Xerxes was not simply an heir to a throne. He was a man driven by what he believed to be a divine mission. As the self-proclaimed King of Kings, he viewed his leadership not as a political role, but as the manifest will of the gods themselves. He was thoroughly convinced that all the earth should bow before the unparalleled majesty of Persia. In his eyes, there were no true borders, only endless opportunities for conquest and the expansion of his divinely ordained rule. Unlike his father Darius, who had often governed with a pragmatic and calculated approach, Xerxes ruled with a fire in his eyes and a burning vengeance in his heart. His ambition was a raging inferno, constantly stoked by his council of advisors, astrologers, and generals. These influential figures relentlessly pushed him to take Greece by force, assuring him of his fated victory. For Xerxes, the impending invasion was not to be a common war of territory. It was to be a divine judgment, with the gods as witnesses to the glorious restoration of imperial pride. With hundreds of thousands of soldiers at his command, Xerxes mobilized what many historians still consider the largest army of the ancient world. This colossal force crossed deserts, traversed pontoon bridges, and marched over mountains with a power that seemed utterly invincible. The Persian war machine advanced like a colossal shadow, threatening to engulf the entire known world. With each step it took, cities surrendered without a fight. Kings bowed in submission, and a palpable wave of fear spread across the lands. Yet a single stubborn obstacle stood in his path: Greece. It was a small, politically divided land, but it possessed a fierce flame of independence that refused to be extinguished. Xerxes understood that mere conquest would not suffice. He needed to humiliate the Greeks, to crush their spirit, and to utterly destroy their cities. Only through such a definitive and brutal victory could his father's name be truly avenged and the Persian Empire's eternal dominance be secured. At this critical moment in history, the very destiny of Western civilization hung precariously on the edge of a sword. The rise of Xerxes marked not only the zenith of Persian power but also the beginning of a monumental conflict that would redefine civilizations for millennia to come. The relentless echo of Persian sandals striking the earth served as the prelude to an epic battle between tyranny and freedom, between a monolithic empire and a collection of fiercely independent city-states. What Xerxes did not yet know was that his relentless quest for glory would bring him face to face with men who were willing to die for something that no army, no matter how large, could ever conquer: the idea of liberty. In the narrow mountain passes of Greece, the heir to the world's greatest empire would soon discover a harsh truth: even a man who believes himself to be a god-king can be made to bleed. While the invasion of Greece was just one more war for many in his empire, for Xerxes, it was a deeply personal crusade. It was an open wound that had been bleeding since the defeat at Marathon. His father, Darius, had been profoundly humiliated by a handful of Greeks who dared to defy the most powerful empire in the world. That defeat did not just mark the end of a military campaign. It scarred the pride of an entire dynasty. Xerxes could not allow his own legacy to begin under the shadow of his father's failure. He felt an overwhelming need to restore Persian dignity and to demonstrate that no insult, no matter how small, would go unpunished. It was a deeply personal matter of honor and of blood. But vengeance was not his only motivation. Xerxes also saw the invasion of Greece as a powerful opportunity to unify his vast and diverse empire under a single, common purpose. This would be a holy war, a glorious march toward total domination. Every soldier who joined his massive army did so not just out of obedience, but out of faith. They believed that Xerxes was fulfilling the divine destiny of the Persian people to conquer and civilize the world. The pain from his father's defeat at Marathon transformed into a fire that burned deep within his chest. It is said that Xerxes could not sleep without dreaming of the fall of Athens, without visualizing its temples in flames and the Greek kings kneeling before him in submission. While the colossal army of Xerxes advanced, the Greek city-states faced a brutal and terrifying truth. They were on the verge of being completely erased from the map. Yet, in the midst of this overwhelming fear and uncertainty, a spark of resistance was ignited. Leonidas, the Stoic king of Sparta, gathered a small, elite force of 300 of his countrymen, along with soldiers from other allied city-states, to defend a strategically crucial pass known as Thermopylae. This narrow passage, caught between impassable mountains and the sea, was the only viable land route into the heart of Greece. The choice of Thermopylae was no accident. It was a masterstroke of defensive strategy. The Greeks knew that in this constricted space, the overwhelming numerical superiority of the Persian army would be rendered useless. Within the narrow defile, it did not matter how many soldiers Xerxes possessed, as only a small number could engage in combat at any given time. This brilliant tactic effectively leveled the playing field, allowing skill and courage to challenge sheer numbers. When the common Persian soldiers failed to break the Greek line, Xerxes was forced to unleash his secret weapon, the feared and revered immortals. This elite Persian unit, composed of 10,000 of the finest warriors in the empire, was renowned for its fierce discipline and terrifying appearance. It was said they could never truly die, as every casualty was immediately replaced, ensuring their number always remained at a constant 10,000. They were the very embodiment of the empire's terror, and Xerxes was convinced that their deployment would finally end the stubborn resistance at Thermopylae. However, Leonidas and his Spartans were not intimidated. When the Immortals advanced, the Greek phalanx closed ranks, becoming an impenetrable wall of bronze shields and sharpened spears. The clash was brutal, a storm of arrows and steel, but the Greeks held their ground, repelling every attempt to break their formation. The myth of the Immortals' invincibility began to crumble against the iron will of the defenders. When brute force proved insufficient to shatter the Greek defense, the Persian victory came from where it was least expected, from an act of betrayal. A local inhabitant named Ephialtes, a man driven by resentment and a desperate craving for recognition, approached the Persian camp. He offered to reveal a hidden path through the mountains, a secret route that would allow the Persians to flank the Greek defenders and attack them from behind. In exchange for this treason, he asked for wealth, fame, and power. As the Persian forces, guided by the traitor, moved to encircle them, Leonidas knew what it meant. There would be no escape, but there would also be no surrender. He allowed many of his allies to retreat and save themselves, but he and his 300 Spartans chose to stay. They did not expect to win. They intended to send a message that would echo through eternity. Their final stand was an act of absolute conviction. They knew their sacrifice would not be in vain and that the story of their defiance would inspire generations. The final combat was a maelstrom of violence, with the Spartans fighting until their weapons broke and they could no longer stand. They fell not with fear, but with pride, knowing they were sowing the seeds of hope for the future of their people. While Xerxes celebrated the fall of Thermopylae, a new and unexpected threat was growing on the sea. The Greeks, far from surrendering, were preparing a devastating response. The brilliant Athenian strategist, Themistocles, understood that the war would not be won on land alone. The key to victory lay in the Aegean Sea, and he devised a plan to lure the immense Persian fleet into a perfectly laid trap. He sent false messages to the Persian camp, convincing Xerxes that the Greek forces were divided and on the verge of retreat. Confident and arrogant after his recent victory, Xerxes took the bait. He ordered his fleet to enter the narrow straits of Salamis, but as they did, they found themselves trapped. The larger Persian vessels could not maneuver in the confined space, creating chaos among their own ranks. The lighter, more agile Greek triremes attacked like hungry sharks, ramming and sinking the helpless enemy ships. From a throne on the coast, Xerxes watched in horror as his naval supremacy was shattered. The battle was a resounding Greek victory that completely changed the course of the war. A year after the epic victory at Salamis, the war was still not over. Xerxes had returned to Persia, but he left behind a massive army under the command of his general Mardonius to finish the conquest. However, Greece was now a different nation. United by the sacrifice of Leonidas and the genius of Themistocles, the city-states assembled a unified army at Plataea to end the Persian threat once and for all. The ensuing battle was the final, decisive clash between two worlds. The Greeks, led by the Spartan Pausanias, trusted in their superior discipline and courage. Mardonius, overconfident in his numbers, underestimated the heart of his enemy. The fighting was fierce, but by the end of the day, the Persian army was broken, Mardonius was slain, and the remnants of Xerxes' grand army fled in disarray. This final victory at Plataea was not just revenge. It was the end of an era. The mighty Persian Empire, which had once dominated 3 continents, was decisively stopped by a handful of united cities. Its defeat marked the beginning of its decline in the West and heralded the dawn of Greece's golden age. Democracy, art, and philosophy flourished, and the Hellenic spirit began to radiate throughout the world. Now that you have journeyed through each battle, betrayal, and sacrifice, you have seen the full scope of this monumental conflict. The courage of 300 men at Thermopylae proved that freedom can flourish even in the face of the most feared empire on earth. The cunning of Themistocles at Salamis taught the world that intelligence can triumph over brute force. And the unity displayed at Plataea sealed the destiny of a civilization whose ideas and values continue to inspire our world to this day. This story is not just an echo from a distant past. It is an invitation to question the limits of our own bravery and to understand that the greatest transformations are often born from decisions that once seemed impossible.